going to happen. So I would say don't hold your breath for this commission of inquiry to be revealed to the public, because the Prime Minister is already setting up his excuse. And think about it. Think about how many things we get told, well, it's before the court, so we can't talk about it. Oh, well, Guy Griffith's thing is before the court, so we can't talk about it. No, 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 no. According to Mr. Griffith, you can't lay it in Parliament. And in that case, there doesn't seem to be any criminal proceedings happening. Otherwise, how are we letting someone with criminal charges, you know, lead a political party and in the next general election? That'll be interesting to see. All right, let's move on to the next story. From one communication challenge to another. And I did say I couldn't avoid it. This Essequibo thing is apparently a hot button topic, even though I think people are overestimating it in some ways and underestimating it in some ways. Sorry, when I say overestimating, I mean what we could do about it, like the opposition. Now, a couple of weeks ago when the Prime Minister had what I consider communication faux pas, he referred to former Minister of National Security Guy Griffith as a soldier, a former soldier. Now, I do believe, and I could be wrong, but I do believe usually the convention is the person's highest office, which is also usually their most recent office. I don't really know of many instances where somebody technically took a demotion in status. That is what Guy Griffith did. He was a former Minister of National Security and then National Security Advisor. And then he took the post of Commissioner of Police. He lobbied for it and successfully got it. That is technically underneath Minister of National Security in terms of status. Kind of breaks the norm of how these things are done, right? But generally speaking, you don't refer to someone's lowest post held in his career. When you refer to him, you generally use the highest, right? If a former president of the United States also helps as a special advisor or special emissary, the rest of his life he's not referred to as special emissary, he's still referred to as former president of the United States. It could have been one term. He could have had 6 terms as governor or whatever the limitations are. Still former president of the United States, right? For better or worse. So anyway, I found that the former backbencher had a slight error with communications there, because I'm pretty sure he would not like to be referred to as that. And nice, pleasant dig, former backbencher. Now, there's an MP who doesn't seem to understand certain concepts. Again, and he is insisting, let me get the correct language here. Well, one newspaper did it very diplomatically, very professionally. It said that he challenged the Prime Minister's stance on the Guyana-Venezuela situation and the opposition's call for Trinidad and Tobago to be mediator. Now, I said it's kind of hard to be the mediator if you're not invited by both sides to mediate. Here's the thing. Within all the rhetoric that Dr. Keith Rowley, former backbencher, current Prime Minister, said, he did have a very good technical point. And that is the fact that we have commercial dealings with Venezuela. And one of the things that the reporters asking the questions didn't seem to really want to understand, I think we kind of want to analyze nations with the morality of individuals, and it doesn't quite work out like that because the responsibilities and the stakes and the scope is so much higher. The Prime Minister pointed out, look, we have a commercial arrangement with Venezuela. That is technically separate to what's going on. And then I think he also was trying to point out the fact that, listen, we have a commercial relationship with Venezuela. How are we then going to be an impartial mediator between Venezuela and Guyana? Yes, technically there are CARICOM ties with Guyana, but we don't have the same kind of direct financial benefit. We have indirect financial benefits, sure, but we have a direct financial benefit with Venezuela. And I believe that's one of the things that the Prime Minister was saying, that we have a conflict of interest, basically. And we can't just abandon Dragon and say, right, and the conflict of interest is gone, and now we can mediate. No, we can't do that, because really and truly in the long run, that interest will still be there. Whether we put a pause to it or not, there will still be, in some form or fashion, the government of the day trying to negotiate more natural gas for a manufacturing sector of which includes the petrochemical industry, of which we cannot supply enough natural gas to currently. So we have financial interests with regards to assets that Venezuela owns. Therefore, it's kind of hard for us to say we're going to be impartial and mediate. So it kind of, the Prime Minister, okay, he was tongue-in-cheek and wanted to ignore what I think is the kind of the conventions of how you refer to, former office holders, etc., etc. Seems as though the MP for the opposition here, MP Munilal, he kind of wants to ignore basic things like fiduciary duty, because the government has a fiduciary duty to the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. And one of the basic things is to not mess up the people's money. And we have a serious financial interest to get this Dragon gas deal done so the people will have the money. Seems like he doesn't understand that. A politician that doesn't want to admit the inconvenient truth of a conflict of interest, whoever saw that in Trinidad and Tobago? Does make me wonder if they really do not understand these things and enter into conflict of interest all the time, and then conveniently blame the other side when it comes up the other side. It works both ways, folks. It works both ways. So I don't get it. Where is there room for it? And then he went on to say, well, you're telling the Prime Minister of St. Vincent to shut up because he is involved in the mediation. But the Prime Minister of St. Vincent, as far as I'm aware, is reported and said, well, no, he's not taking on the role of mediator. He's not the mediator of talks between Venezuela and Guyana that's going to be coming up, I believe, later this week. He is a facilitator, not a mediator. And again, I have to ask the question, why do we have to mediate? Because Venezuela could turn around and say, you're part of CARICOM, you have a vested interest in CARICOM and the Caribbean community, and your whatever political alliance you have because of that. And Venezuela could say, well, we can't trust you to have our best interests at heart. Both sides can make claims that we have an interest with the other. So, and they don't necessarily cancel each other out. I'm pretty sure it's not a fault for fault thing. That's not how this works. Right? One would think, yes, okay, we have a relationship with both, we could do it. But at the end of the day, why should we? If they wanted to, they would have asked us by now. Doesn't seem like they are. Are we supposed to insist our way into the room? We already have had multiple instances of being in hot water with the current Guyanese administration. Now we're going to what? Fight for a place to mediate? In a situation where really and truly, what is either side going to compromise? So again, I do have to wonder, is the opposition MP a smart man that really is on a foolish path? A smart man. Or if he knows that this really doesn't matter, but it's something that I could spin in a way to make the government look bad because I'm going to play on the fears of the people. To be honest, the reporters in the press conference on Fridays, they seem to be quite fearful and panicky with how their perspectives on the issues was. And it's almost as though they kind of don't really understand how nations view these things will be governments. It will not be like how I will view a dispute between two of my neighbors on the street. It's not exactly the same thing. And in some ways, TNT picking a side could increase tensions as opposed to decreasing it. TNT wanting to get involved. I mean, there's a flip side to this as well. Opposition wants TNT to mediate. They want the government of Trinidad and Tobago to step in. Therefore, they want politicians of the PNM side of the bench to mediate. You spend all the time telling us how corrupt and inept and incompetent and incapable the PNM are. But hey, you all go handle this story. You're not handling it, it's your fault. Like, think about it, right? All right, let's take a break. More stories after this when we come back here on Talking Points. Stay tuned.
comes naturally to us. Unstoppable energy. We use it to manifest a future. A future where energy takes new forms and is used in new ways for all of us. The new age of energy is here.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain.
My name is Carl Media, and I'm the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
Welcome back to Talking About, ladies and gentlemen. Still some stories to get through before we will be welcoming the media ambassador today as well. Of course, with the Christmas season, we do have to be concerned about our safety. And one thing I will say is that, you know, we can't escape it. And I have some nephews. I have to get them Christmas presents. You know, I should get Christmas presents for the adults in the family as well. So did some shopping yesterday, went to 2 of the malls, you know, close to my home. Was pleasantly surprised by the amount of police presence within the malls. One could argue it might have been a little overkill, but you know what? I will not knock it because they were there, they were available, and I appreciate it. Now, third story here. This may come as no surprise to those who have not read it yet. But it has been reported that Nikon is in default, and the note holders passed a resolution on November the 7th to appoint a steering committee among note holders to establish a plan for the now defunct plant to move forward, I believe, in order to try to figure out a way if they could recoup as much as the money owed to them, all of the investment that was made that is still out there between loans and capital invested. And that is being challenged. The last that we have heard, based on the report, that the founder and chief visionary officer, Ainsley Gill, he is claiming irregularities in the extraordinary resolutions passed in that meeting, and apparently now he was not allowed to state his case at the meeting. Apparently they will have another meeting to include representatives from Nikon. Will that include Mr. Gill? I'm not entirely sure. I think there are a couple of things that the various stakeholders have issues with. One is with what happened with some of the former executives who sued the company for breach of contract, including former independent Senator David Small, and that was to the tune of $20 million. I believe it's owed to him, so he's basically suing for money that's owed to him, not for like some sort of pie-in-the-sky damages. And the note holders, apparently, they're looking at that and saying, well, that is hurting the reputation of Nikwan, the plant, its operations, it as a commercial entity. But I think also it comes to the fact that the situation is just devolving. Nikwan does not have access to a natural gas supply, and Ainsley Gill's move was basically to try to get the court to force the Ministry of Energy or compel them to supply with natural gas, something that it seems that the ministry is not willing to do, which I do find slightly, ever so slightly surprising, because this project seemed like a golden child project by the current administration. And to some extent, to see them make an about turn over this could be an admission of objectivity to some degree, right? They're not necessarily outright stating, hey, we don't have faith in your project. But it seems to be a sign that they're outright not just going to follow along and hope for the best and drink the Kool-Aid and believe everything that Mr. Gill is selling. And I do find it was also surprising that he was able to get some credit to continue trying to continue operations going at some parts of the year before I believe this note holders meeting happened. So this appears to be what happens when somebody who is not potentially qualified to undertake a great project and attempts to do it in a way that may or may not include shortcuts, that may or may not include favors and preferential treatment. This might be the result of that, or something similar along those lines, maybe. And you hate to see it. At the end of the day, is it completely surprising? After 2 industrial accidents, no, I can't say that it is completely surprising. It's not coming out of left field, because the accidents imply that the entity was not in a healthy place. The fact now that it's the issues are coming home to roost, not just chickens, full blown out hundreds of millions of dollars in debt. It's not surprising, and to some extent it's unfortunate. But given the fact that we have a natural gas shortage in the immediate term, it really doesn't matter to me. But that whole shortage situation is a whole other problem. Right, now, next story. There were 3 new deputy commissioners of police appointed. And the police association is, saying that the new appointment is confident that it will strengthen the operational capacity of the police in crime fighting. To be fair, he had a tiff over his name not being considered for one of these postings, but 3 people were granted the new post, and as it said, there were 3 vacant DCP positions, and they will each probably take a portfolio that they will be given to oversee, and it's part of the administration to help the senior leadership of the police service. That being said, this piece of news, as much as the association president is trying to put a positive spin on it, it literally means absolutely nothing to me. I don't care. To me, it just, right now, the cynic in me wants to say that it's, 3 people in a jobs program getting senior management promotions, potentially because of tenure. Because I have no real faith in the Police Service Commission. And I do believe they are the body that, they don't just oversee the Commissioner of Police, but also the Deputy Commissioners of Police. That's different to the Assistant Commissioners of Police. And for the most part, these 3 people, one of them apparently was ACP for administration. Administration might be one of the portfolios given to a DCP. I think the current Commissioner of Police, Eli Christopher, was a DCP with that portfolio administration. I could be wrong about that. But, you know, to some extent, okay, they get bigger checks and some of them get more responsibility. Are we going to see production? I kind of doubt. I kind of doubt in this situation, really. Listen, we have issues like, well, now a police officer apparently is, a municipal police officer has been found murdered. Not quite, I believe, the same thing as TTPS, I could be wrong. And we still have issues like fake uniforms. Well, it's a widespread, ongoing, long-term problem. And it's further undermining the police service. And it seems as though, for whatever reason, the police service rather not hold the people responsible accountable and clean up the situation and all the leaks that allow authentic uniforms to somehow get within the black market. It seems as though they don't really care to do that. Hence why the last time uniforms were confiscated, it included authentic police uniforms, not just counterfeit ones. And then we know that they're used in crime. Some of them are assassinations, some of them are potentially robberies, with that mayoral robbery that included the soldier who was accused, but the witnesses backed out because you've reached the point where you don't know how many people in uniform service are part of the criminal industry in our Twin Island Republic. We don't know anymore. But the police service so far does not apparently see the need to do anything significant in order to fix the problem. Maybe they have, and I'm not aware of it. But one of the things that you do as a leader is when you have an issue that is eroding public trust, you communicate that you have solutions to try to restore public trust. And as far as I'm aware, that's not happening. So, okay, we have 3 new deputy commissioners of police. That's great. Someone tell Gideon Dixon to call me when something actually positive happens with regards to crime fighting in the country. Next story. This one is rather interesting. And I do think it's a minor story that has wide implications. A judge basically, well, an injunction was filed, and I believe that a judge gave a ruling on it that held up the request to not allow parties to happen in a specific property in St. Clair. And the neighbors are basically complaining between the noise, then there's the whole, you know what it is, people drinking, so not everybody gets to use the bathroom because the bathrooms are overcrowded and potentially stink, so there's peeing on the wall. And of course, it's not like one random person driving by peeing on the wall. We're talking half a fet peeing on walls. And then, of course, parking is an issue. This is a residential area, so they don't park in lots around, so they're parking in the road, and they're potentially parking in front of your gate. And some of the residents are retirees who may or may not undergo a medical emergency, so having access to the road, you know, is a little bit more important than an average adult or child, etc., etc. So these injunctions happen. I will say this, I actually did go to a New Year's party that was held at a private residence, from what I understand, and I could be totally wrong, it's not that I knew the location to be a party's location. It wasn't the one in question. And I honestly did not even think about what it would be like for the neighbors. But it was a New Year's party. So, you know, that might have a little bit more leeway than random weekend. Now, I don't know how much noise it was. I do think that the party was well organized to prevent it from disrupting the neighbors with regards to peeing on the walls and things like that. At least I hope. I didn't witness any of that happening. And the parking situation, I hope nobody parked in front of people's gates. Of course, you know, the streets all around the location was littered with cars. So I could understand that the immediate neighbors, at the very least, with regards to the noise, and the extended community with regards to all of these random half-drunk people parking all over the place, they would be upset by it, especially since it's a purely residential area, right? And now, I think, though, it does have to make you consider, what about the residents of Woodbrook that had to go through the commercialization of their suburb, which included Arpita Avenue and all of the nightlife that came with it, right? And is it fair that St. Clair could get this injunction? Although it seems as though, to be fair, that they did take some time. They had to complain a lot, and the authorities didn't really seem to be dealing with the issue. So they got the court to deal with the issue. The court said, fine, yes, no more parties. And I think there was a party to be scheduled, and that was basically cut by 12 p.m. That was scheduled, I think, last weekend. And there's orders with regards to parking, not blocking people's driveways, etc., etc. But to what extent is it fair to what happened to Woodbrook or parts of Woodbrook compared to now what is happening to St. Clair? And what should we have in place to prevent residential areas becoming business offices? Because it's happening all over Woodbrook and even parts of St. Clair on the other side, of the traffic light by the road by the Oval. And is that part of St. Clair? Is that part of Woodbrook? All of those buildings next to One Alexandria on that road and those other side streets. So it is what it is. I just thought it was interesting, and I do think that the whole party culture and reckless abandon does need to have a bit more checks and balances. And yes, you don't want the courts to do it because sometimes the courts could be too heavy-handed. But unfortunately, we're kind of putting ourselves in the corner to have the courts do it. And then the last story, I'll just mention this briefly. Blue Waters, apparently, they had a cyber attack. 10 gigabytes of company information is reported to have been released on the dark web, including passport and clients' credit card information. I'm not entirely sure why Blue Waters has clients' passport information. And their credit card information, yes, if it's actual distributors or anyone who purchases from them, and it probably is going to be in bulk and they might be using their credit card to do it. Fine, okay, I understand, okay. Still don't get the passports, but all right, sure. I don't know if it's international customers or what exactly. But they were hacked as well. And now the question is, to what end? And is this going to continue? And are we really taking cybersecurity seriously? To be fair, who wants to hack a water company? Unless you're going to hack information and hold it to ransom to either A, we have your machines with ransomware, you can't access your machines which you need to operate. Some TV shows have had this already in plots and storylines, etc., right? You can't access your own digital devices, your computers, your databases, etc., because we have put software to prevent you from accessing it. Pay us a ransom, we'll give you back access. But it seems as though, no, they're taking data and just dumping it on the dark web without asking for a ransom to not release it to the public. What's the point? Will they continue it? And I guess this is probably one area where we skimped on the expenditure for a while, because that's human nature. We don't spend any money if we don't see a need to do it. I think, recent events are proving that it's best if you do it sooner rather than later. Even small businesses should be concerned depending on their database setup. We'll just see where this ends. Not another company, folks. Hopefully another government office doesn't get hacked because I'll just be laughable. But anyway, let's take a break, and when we come back, we should have the media ambassador with us. Stay tuned. This is Talking Point on your content capital, WESN. We'll be right back.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
It comes naturally to us. Unstoppable energy. We use it to manifest a future. A future where energy takes new forms and is used in new ways for all of us. The new age of energy is here.
Let the home store turn your house into a home you love. We offer household items, lawn and garden, paint center, hardware, plumbing, lighting and electrical, toys and storage solutions. And just for you this Christmas, come check us out for great gift ideas and all your Christmas decorations. 6 convenient locations: 6th Avenue Barataria, The Falls at West Mall, Pennywise Plaza Chaguanas, C3 Center Branch, Christmas Store at C3 San Fernando, and Eastgate Mall, Trin City. Check out our Facebook page for more information and come visit us today. The Home Store. Turn your house into a home you love.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Welcome back to Talking Point on WESN in HD. And joining me is ASP Ashraf Ali, also in HD, but his own HD. From home, via Zoom, we have the TPS Media Ambassador with us this morning. Good morning, Ashraf Ali. Sir, how are you going?
Good morning, sir. It's nice to be here.
So one of the things I did mention, and I'll take the opportunity to say this again, I was out shopping. I went to more than one mall yesterday. I saw the police presence with regards to Christmas safety. It was more than just one pair of police in the mall. It seemed to be a group, because there were like police in enough quarters where I was like, oh, this is a presence. It's not just like one or two trying to cover a whole mall. So this is ongoing for the TTPS to cover shopping centers like this until the Christmas season. I guess December 25th is over.
Yes, and that is one of the things that we constantly try to do, because we know that there is a heightened presence of activities at the malls, be it from shopping, window shopping, or just persons just going to the malls for entertainment and otherwise. And we normally would increase our presence in the malls around this time. Because at the same time, when you have persons who are law abiding, you also have persons who are looking for opportunities to commit offenses, commit crimes. So that is what we have to look at the same time. It's not that there's a presence alone, but reduce the amount of opportunities at these locations for criminal elements to take advantage.
And I mean, I don't know if it was because I'm aware of it, but I never really saw a presence like what I saw yesterday. I was pleasantly surprised and somewhat impressed. Hopefully it will dissuade criminals from trying anything. But you never know. Some criminals could be quite brazen in 2023. Even with the police presence being right there, they might still attempt to do something stupid. But we're still on the topic of Christmas safety tips. So, well, I don't know. I believe we were speaking about safety for children, and more came out in the papers with regards to the TPS concerns over watching children over the holidays.
Yeah, so we started the conversation on the last session, and it's a continuation going forward because we have to reinforce it. So, you know, as was mentioning, there are a lot of children with this, as school closes, there are a lot of children going to the malls on their own, because, you know, the youths, you know, they like to go and enjoy themselves at the malls and other areas and do their own shopping in some circumstances. So we have to be cautious about that. Then we also have children who will be home. They may not have adults right through with them. They may be responsible enough to be home, but at the same time, the parents still have to be a little careful as to who they leave the children with, because we already had a lot of incidents involving children and some unfortunate situations at the same time where, you know, children were allowed to venture into certain areas, and we had some unfortunate situations where the children lost their lives. So those are some of the things that we have to look at in that context. We have the other issue now where, around this period, you will have a lot of persons coming to your place looking for a little odd jobs around the house. Maybe landscaping, we have painting, or even assisting in cleaning in and around your premises. Now, persons might believe that these persons are genuine.
Yeah.
Majority of the persons are genuine because they may be looking for an honest day living, but then we have to be careful that in the group of genuine individuals, there are persons who may have criminal intents, and they may come into your house, into your premises. You may not be wondering, you may not be paying much attention to the persons, what they come to do, but they may looking at certain things, look into your windows, checking to see how your property is made up, if you have any security measures, if you have anything that they're looking at to get an opportunity to steal. And then, who knows, 2-3 days afterwards, you realize that there was a break-in in your property. Somebody came in, they stole a lot of items, and you're wondering who may have done that, and you're not fully aware that at some point in time, it may be that you gave persons the opportunity to come in and find out exactly what you have. So for the persons who are taking this opportunity at this point in time to offer jobs for persons who are doing Christmas period jobs, right? If you don't know those individuals who have never interacted with those persons throughout the year, they have never been around, you don't have any recommendation from any of the neighbors or anybody, any residents in the area to say, hey, this person came and did work by me. Yes, I can recommend these individuals. And that's some of the things that we need to do in communities. If persons are doing work in the communities, ask your neighbors, what about this individual? And I saw this person doing X, Y, and Z, and I want to hire him or her. Are they reliable? That level of communication give you an understanding of the type of individuals and the character of the person. So you may have a better opportunity to to trust the judgment of your neighbors in seeking the interests of your when you do those type of things.
Well, one of the things I found interesting is, or one of the groups that might be at risk is the fact that retirees, older people, they might need help with just the physical aspect of it, the cleaning or repair work, yard work, painting. Of course, you want to paint for Christmas, right? But what if you just, you're old, it'll take you too long, you just don't have the energy or the strength to climb up on the ladder to get the high spots. You want to hire somebody to do it. And one of the things I have concerns with is if they're living by themselves, and as you said, you invite somebody to your home who potentially could be casing you. One of the things they could be casing is, who is there? Is there other people living there? Is there young people living there? Younger people living there? Is the person home by themselves? Are they home by themselves for the entire day? Like how cut off might they be to other people, which could make them an easier target. So if you have like your mother is not living with you or you're not living with her and she is having a workman over on a Saturday as the son, would it make sense for me to just, kind of be around? And I could maybe also help out too, but, you want to pay the person as well. You don't want to take away from their work and stuff like that. But you don't want to have your mother kind of just there with work people in a house and you don't know what could happen.
No, it's so true. So, there are simple things that we take for granted. And in this current environment, we have to look at these type of things and consider the information that we are sending to keep on sending out to you all and to the general public when it comes to public safety and security of these situations, and put your measures in place. I cannot tell you how to treat with it because I do not know your personal situation, but all we are doing is trying to advise you and make you aware of some of these situations that we have recorded. Persons have been victims of these type of things. Then we also have another aspect of it where we have persons who, during this period, moving from one place to the other, hiring transportation or looking for transportation. Now, this is another that we have to look at because there are safety risks, safety situations. Also, you may call somebody to do some transportation for you, and when that person comes to do transportation, you don't know this individual, you never interacted with this individual, and you can become a subject of a robbery, as well as the person who's going to do the transportation could also be a victim also. It's similar to when you're going to buy a vehicle, like we mentioned before, when you're going to do this type of thing. So, you have to be self-aware. You have to understand the environment that you're going into, the time of the day, and the time of the day, whether it's a day or night that you're going to do this type of transportation. And if you realize that the risk is a bit high for yourself, you should reconsider doing those type of transportation. And if you don't know what you really, because there are in fact a risk, and I'm saying that everybody who doing transportation is out there intending to do criminal acts, but even the persons who are legitimate individuals doing transportation, they can be victims because they may be going to an environment or an area that you can become a victim at the same time. So we have to look at it from varying perspectives. There are a lot of opportunities out there for criminal elements, as well as we ourselves have to understand that what we do impact on our decision making, and we have to make the best decision possible in this current situation.
And by transportation, it could be anything from, say, I need to hire a car to take me to the airport. I don't want to park my car in the airport. I'm going away for too long. Or maybe I bought furniture. I need to transport it. I have to see about transport myself. Or I bought a gift for somebody. I need transported. Or I bought stock to go to Tobago. I need transported. Like, it could be anything. And like you said, it could be a bait or switch, similar to what we saw when you're trying to sell something online. You're offering your transportation services, and you might get robbed of your vehicle because it was a setup.
Yeah. So true. And with that, now we also have the other area where we talk about the persons buying online and persons offer free delivery or delivery on your doorstep, as the case may be. Delivery on your doorstep might could be a red flag in certain circumstances, because you are now literally inviting that individual straight to your door, giving them direction directly to your home, and those are opportunities at the same time. So we have to be careful. We really have to be careful in how we utilize these services that provide, that actually the services that allow persons to come into your personal space, in your businesses, in your homes. These type of things that you have to be careful, because you are opening up your home to individuals, and open up your home to individuals. At the same time, you are putting yourself going out there by providing a service, and you want to make it convenient and to the individual. So you're going to the location to do transactions. So we have to also be careful of that, and be very cognizant of how we treat with it. Right? There are a lot of opportunities out there for the criminal elements to exploit, because in this, we know that persons are trying to make an honest living, and all opportunities that they are looking at earn an extra dollar, legally, I should say. You're putting yourself at risk at the same time by doing those sort of things. So you have to be very, very cautious as to how you operate within this environment.
So, big takeaway: referrals, especially when you're hiring anybody to do anything for Christmas. Try to get a referral of someone who could potentially be, you have a little bit more, you have someone to vouch for them, that they could be trusted, that they are legit, that they've been doing this work, not just Johnny come lately, fly by night. Because, it's also good advice, because there might be some guy, I could paint, pay me, I could paint, and then he botches your paint job on your house, and you have to spend money for a next guy to repaint your house, and you have to buy more paint. But one of the things I find, is there any concern that, and I saw this yesterday, people can get frustrated. It's Christmas, sometimes the malls are packed, not always, but you're expected to be packed more and more now as we get closer to actual 25th of December. And time is limited, because not everybody is on vacation. Children are on vacation, so it actually means mommy and daddy might be busier than ever, because they have to figure out work and children at the same time, or have to figure out, children for extra hours in a day that school otherwise would have facilitated supervision for you. Is there any concern that people in their frustrations, they would just want to, they might overlook things because they want it done, they want to get it out of the way, they want this wall painted, they want the kitchen clean, they want their living room vacuumed, they want their decorations, they want their lights on the tree outside to be hung. So they'll just kind of, I need somebody now to do it so I can get this out of the way, and their impatience might cause them to maybe not regard their safety as much as they should, and kind of take it for granted. It'll be all right, I just hired a guy, what could go wrong, until something actually does go wrong.
And that's a reality, and it's not something that you're just trying to tell the public do not do, because, like I said before, we don't know the person's circumstances and how their time management is, and what they plan for to schedule their work and whatever it is. But at the same time, we really have to be cognizant of what is taking place and pay attention of what the environment is, right? So sometimes you may not be the unlucky one. You may be the one that you'll bring the persons into your place, and while in your house, doing the work, or in your community, having done the work in your community, they're also canvassing the neighbors' properties. So they may not come to your location, they may target the neighbor. So, from a community perspective, we have to be careful holistically. From a personal perspective, it is much more. But we all know that the same way that we are trying to be as safe as possible, with looking at it from cost in terms of not getting proper service, as well as safety of our family and our homes, there are criminal elements are looking for opportunities to get to do that. So they are working tirelessly, trying to commit offenses, because they're looking to earn money at the same time. They're looking to get quickly at the same time. They're looking for opportunities for persons who drop their guard, and anytime they get an opportunity to commit an offense and take advantage of a situation, they are looking to exploit that. So we have to understand that safety is not just about one aspect alone. There's a multitude of things that you can do for safety. Even driving a vehicle on your road, you stop to get something on your road. You decide, see me, I just jump out of my vehicle, buy something, and my vehicle is left idling with the keys in the vehicle. I mean, you're presenting yourself an opportunity. You're presenting an opportunity for something to happen. It may not happen on that occasion, but you don't know when it will really happen. And if we all could have been able to predict when things, unfortunate or good things are happening to us, we all will be in a better position. But unfortunately, we are not able to predict when things could happen to us in the future. So it's something that we just have to prepare ourselves for. Prepare as much as reasonably that we can, without putting ourselves in a box and saying that we are we do not want to interact with the world, because the world is such a place that I cannot live in it, because we all have to live in here in the world as well as in Trinidad and Tobago. So we have to try our best to keep ourselves safe and our families as safe as possible. Understanding, and that is key, understanding our environment and what is really the situation where crimes of opportunity is your responsibility. You have to reduce yourself as reduce your opportunity for presenting yourself as a victim and given opportunities, or simple opportunities for criminal elements to commit those offenses.
Well,
as much as once you do that, you are on the road of what we call hard targeting and making yourself a harder target.
Well, I'd like to close just by pointing out what might seem obvious to most people, right? But I think it's less obvious when you're in the moment. Now, we're already kind of fortunate. This is not like somebody selling their car. You're not going to have referrals on if he's a good used car salesman. How many times you're going to sell a car, right? But these sorts of jobs, labor, hiring labor, you could get referrals for. And we said this about online sales, though. At some point, if it looks too good to be true, you really should, take it with a grain of salt and ask, how is this deal so good? How is this person's rate so low? And maybe you should stay away from it. The temptation, of course, in the moment is, but he's cheaper, I don't want to be a punk and spend money unnecessarily. It's Christmas, and I know all the money I can get. But it goes back to the complacency. It's like, it might seem obvious now when we think about it academically. Yeah, if it looks too good, people will avoid it. But when we face the actual, I could save $50, $100, we might be tempted, and too good to be true is just to kind of incentivize us, to pull us in and make us vulnerable. Pick me so I could scope you out, or maybe open the door, keep the door open for my guys to bum rush you maybe as soon as the first day.
Yes, so like it's true. So we really have to look at it holistically, right? We have to look at it holistically, and there's not there's not much police can do in terms of providing that level of safety and judgment in your home itself by the person, determining the person that you hire, who you hire for transportation, or who you provide services to, or who you interact on the social media in terms of providing transaction or buying items to. But we are here to inform you all that we have had reports, and it's not something we just pull out of our hat and saying, don't do this or don't do that, or we just don't want you all to do it. But it is evidence that we have that has been happening over a couple of months and continue to happen. Even though we continue to reinforce it and share the information, there are persons are always caught in a trap, and unfortunately become victims of this type of criminal activities. So it's another, it's just continuous reinforcement of this. And if we can avoid one or two persons again becoming victims, it means that we are going in a better position. We are learning from our mistakes. Persons will make mistakes, but at the same time, the more information and more education about these type of things are being placed out there, I think persons will be able to make a better decision, not from a financial perspective alone, but holistically.
Well, I mean, financially, you know, the worst outcome is to get robbed, just saying. So, folks, food for thought, be careful out there, because as was wrong with online shopping, they're still victims, and as long as they're victims, criminals or people susceptible to be victims, criminals will continue to act in those specific instances in that specific manner, and this will continue. But let's take a break here. When we come back, quick break, we'll open the phone lines here on Talking Point. You, of course, could speak on this and anything else we spoke about, or anything else you might want to speak about. Stay tuned, we'll be right back after this.
My name is Carl Media, and I'm the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing nowadays.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry uncle. They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios, but they've stood by us, even when we got a little stir-crazy. For that, they deserve some thanks. They deserve Benjamin Moore.
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, now is the time we open the phone lines. ASP Ali is here with me to answer your questions. If you have any technical questions with regards to police, because there are a lot to be honest, we don't understand, and terms that are used, and we assume that it means certain things because that's what they mean in English, but then what they actually mean on the technical scale of policing or criminal justice, it doesn't quite exactly mean what we think it is to mean. It's like a false friend in a foreign language, as you could say. It's not quite what we think. So he's always available to do that, and of course, I spoke about a lot of things today. There's the ongoing situation with Essequibo. There's the Commission of Inquiry, and like I said, don't hold your breath on that one. There's the ongoing crime situation in general, which we could also speak about. So call in, have your say here on Talking Point, and let us know what you want to speak about. You can make a comment, you can ask a question. It is all up to you. Now, with that said, I'm not entirely sure. I had a caller, and we were talking about this on air, and it led to a point that I felt it would actually maybe be good. I don't know to what extent you could speak about it, because we're not entirely sure. One of our callers, Mr. Fisherman, he was speaking about an issue. And if you could call in so that we could get more information, because ASP Ali and I are not entirely sure what you mean, or not aware exactly of what forms that the police that you said need to sign, what those forms actually are. One of the things that came out of discussing it with ASPLE is that he was wondering if, because corporations control certain aspects of those sorts of industries, so if it was something that might have been under the responsibility of municipal police as opposed to the TTPS. I don't know if, I thought that might be something that would be pertinent to explain, like just what are the subtle differences? Well, hold that thought. We have St. Anne's on the line. Good morning, caller, you're on air.
Good morning, Sean. I want to make 2 comments this morning, or almost 2 comments, and watch how far I'll go on. The first concerns the untimely demise of Miss McDonald.
Yes.
I think, for my money, the worst thing about her passing is that she didn't get her day in court. I long for the day when politicians, after they've been arrested and charged, and if they're in a court, actually get to the point of being sentenced and serving serious jail time. I'm not casting any illusion on this one, innocence or guilt. I'm just saying I'm tired of seeing it get to court and either they get off, or in the case of Miss McDonald and the dancing sheriff and whoever else, they fly off to another unknown. And we are left with a sense of incompleteness in the population as to what really went on there. That's my first comment. The second comment concerns the UNC leaders' clarion call for an examination of the level of pornography in the country and its impact on children in particular. I almost get the sense over and over in this place that we are closing the stable door after the horse was bolted. I would have preferred if she had taken a more holistic approach to the problems of indiscipline in the school system, as opposed to targeting a particular thing, pornography, because it's not evidence-based, as far as I'm aware, that there's a link between pornography and violence in the school system per se. I remember when smartphones were first introduced in this country some years ago, we saw a rash of incidents in schools where school children themselves were photographing themselves in indelicate arrangements, if I could use that phrase, where it was being published online. And I believe one of them was in your alma mater, Fatima. And the level of consternation it caused in the public speaks to our sensitivity, if I could use that word, with regards to sexual matters, and particularly sexual matters as it relates to children. We don't really know how we got here. I always say that nothing in the society is new. It all goes back to the plantation, including our, apparently in our male population at least, the overwhelming desire for fair-skinned flesh. We could all trace it back to the plantation and their rationale for these things, but nobody wants to discuss this. The Social Sciences Division of UE has never been called on in a public policy way that I'm aware of to look at some of these issues that we are bedeviled with on a day-to-day basis. And I'm always amazed that we always seem to try to reinvent the wheel. Okay. If we had looked at new technologies before they were implemented in this place, I remember even when cable went live, there was an issue with pornographic channels being made available. Citizens were having access in some ways to pornographic channels. We don't look at the impact of technology on our lives before we embrace it, before we accept it, before we implement it. And then when the horse is bolted, when we have these issues coming up, then we want to say, oh, maybe we should have looked back at that and challenged that and examined that. And it's already too late. It's already in the environment. Children are picking it up. And mind you, while you're in the subject of pornography, we could look at Carnival even if you want to go further.
Okay, caller, I'm sorry, I have another caller waiting, so I don't want...
I apologize.
Well, all right, we did lose that caller, but I will take this opportunity to respond and ask that caller to call back. I didn't want to get into a 2.5 point. I agree with you, caller, in the sense of this. It works both ways. Marlene McDonald did not get her day in court, so she will never either be punished, nor could she potentially be cleared or get vindication, right? It'll just be up in the air. And I think that's the real travesty of situations like this in the criminal justice system. We get no answers. To be fair to her, she's not proven guilty, but unfortunately, it's hard for citizens to just, accept that. And I think that for politicians, they should understand the consequences of not being able to clear your name, right? So that's the first point. Quick, we have St. James on the line, but quick.
Just to add to that, it shouldn't be one individual alone. I think across the board as citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, you should have an opportunity to clear your name.
True.
Right, so it's unfortunate in this situation that we treat it from that perspective. So I'm not taking away anything from anybody, but generally across the board,
it's not
sometimes
just
all you have. Yeah. You only have your name, so that's the opportunity where to clear your name and that of your family at the same time.
It's not just politicians that this could happen to. We have St. James on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on here. Caller, morning.
Hello. Yeah, morning.
Morning.
Yeah, morning. This is a question for the officer.
Sure.
If in a roadblock, you're stopped by the police, and they want to check, normally they will ask you to see in your trunk or all of things. Do you have to get out the vehicle to see what they're doing or thing like that? Is it lawful or not lawful or what? So, that's it.
That's it?
Yeah, that's it.
Well,
right. So it is a lawful search under the Motor Vehicle and Road Traffic Act. If you do not go with traffic exercise or even under any circumstances where you're looking for arms and ammunition, we have the authority to stop and check any vehicles. Now, the question is that we're going to search the vehicle. My advice to you is that once the officer asks you to exit your vehicle and open your trunk, you shouldn't do so because of the fact that they are searching the vehicle and they want to search the vehicle in your presence. So they limit the amount of allegations made against both parties in terms of you making allegations that the police put something there or the police find something and you are saying that it was not there. So for the purpose of transparency, you should allow the officer to check the vehicle, but make sure that you are present in observing the search. There's a difference in observing the search and causing an obstruction. Right? The law, you can observe the search. Anybody can observe the search that is taking place.
What would happen if the officer might ask you to step away? I assume that you would say that he shouldn't do that, but what should a citizen do if they ever find themselves in a situation like that, where you're not allowed to observe?
The officer will tell you step away. Step away might be arm's length away so they can conduct the search, but they will make sure that you are actually observing what they are doing.
Okay.
So step. It would not mean that they're going to tell you empty your trunk and all of that. They may ask because you may volunteer to do it at the same time. It all depends on the type of search and the type of confrontation that you are getting, right? And the friction that is taking place. There are persons who would have stepped aside, a law-abiding citizens, they get in the trunk, check, or they're checking the vehicles getting checked, and they step aside and say, officer, I will move out all of this, and you could go ahead and check my vehicle because I have nothing to hide. And then there are persons who will make issues about it. So it all depends on the situation, but I'm saying from a legal perspective and according to the law, the officers are authorized to do it. It is a legal search, right? But you have the opportunity at the same time to observe what is taking place. And observe doesn't mean the officer put you in a vehicle and lock you up and you're watching through a vehicle and they're searching your vehicle. No, you should be in a position to observe what is taking place, but at the same time not causing an obstruction to the officer carrying out his job. So it's not a hard and fast rule to say, well, I had to stand up right next to the officer, right? Because that is not a safe thing for the officer. He will actually step aside and he will be under surveillance by another officer observing what is taking place.
628-4578-623-9376. Call in before the show ends. You know, there are people who don't get through and they keep calling towards the 11th hour. Please call in now, we still have some time. I actually ran into one of the viewers who complained he couldn't get through, and I'm trying to tell him, no, call in earlier, because he has good contributions. He had a very impactful phone call not too long ago, and I told him so on yesterday. But I want to add too, you know, and and you could, well, I hope you would agree with this, but this might seem obvious to law-abiding citizens, but it's a stressful situation to if the police want to search your vehicle. I understand that any sort of dealings with the police can be very stressful for the ordinary citizen. Always try to remain calm and comply, because you don't want to do something silly, and it could just be out of nervous energy, or you want to be belligerent and assume that you know your rights better than the police officer, which even if you do, still always try to remain calm and comply, because that's not the place to debate out who has a better grasp of the law, because you're not helping yourself. Debate it in a court in front of a judge. Don't debate it on the street where the police officer potentially is going to also be worried you have something to hide, you might be up to no good, you might be a threat to somebody, etc., etc.
Yeah, and you also have an opportunity to take to report the unprofessional conduct of the officer if you believe that they went up way above their authority or exceeded the powers of authority. You have an opportunity to deal with that. So, and I agree with you, Sean. That is not the time to be arguing that situation. All right? That is not the time. The officer has a function to do, carrying out his function. You may not be in agreement with it, but at the same time, he or she has to carry out that function, and in a professional manner. And if you find that it is wasn't professional, you have an opportunity to treat with it. What I can say is that he or she must identify themselves to you. Number, rank, and name. Just remember the two words: number, rank, and name. Not what station you're working, where you come from, who is this, what's your first name, how long you're working in the service. Number, rank, and name. That is what they're required to do, because every police officer has a regimental number assigned to them.
All right.
And when you retire from Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, that number retires with you. So that is the number that they're going to use.
We have San Fernando on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on here. Hello, San Fernando?
Morning, sir.
Morning.
Morning, ASP
Morning.
Ali.
Good morning, sir.
So I just wanted to say to ASP Ali, ASP Ali, I still seen patrols happening, police patrols, and they still have the windows up and the air condition running. Okay, I understand sometimes the day may be a little warm, but you can't be patrolling to try and make the citizens safe, and you can't hear anything. Just please implore the division heads to let the officers know that they need to put their glass down when they're patrolling. Please. Have a good day.
And I agree with you. That has been a regular complaint citizens have indicated. No, but at the same time, that is an initiative. I'm going to rephrase the word initiative. That's something that an officer needs to understand. From a security perspective, he or she needs to have the window down, because they really cannot hear what is transpiring on the outside. Right? So it works both ways, for their personal protection as well as that of the citizens. So continue trying to employ the officers that when you're out on patrol, yes, we understand that the environment might not be conducive at some point in time with all the equipment that they may have on. So you may want to wind the glass, use the air condition for a little while. until the temperature, until they get. But generally, you should not be using it when you're going to do, you're driving through an area, you're driving through the community. Wind your windows down because you actually want to hear what is taking place outside of the vehicle at the same time, right? Because you may not know who calling out to you, who's saying officer this. They might be the officer stopping you to commend you at the same time. It's not always from a perspective of the public wants to call you out for a report or chastise you. They may just simply want to call and say, officer, good morning, how are you back? And that barrier that window, that glass, it presents a barrier to the citizens that would believe that, and that is one thing that they could, by simply winding on that, putting on that glass, you reduce their barrier and you're now more engaged with the public. So that simple thing can also increase the public trust and confidence in the police by just that simple move of
I think there's a psychological perspective where, you're more accessible. I could see you, you could see me, we could maybe even have a wave and a chat. Or not everybody who might see the police car might be close to it to be noticeable. They might be, down the street, they see the blue and white. That's just a silhouette in a sea of silhouettes to the officers who may not notice them. And you're trying to shout, with all of the noise and the hustle and bustle of the busy road there, and any little advantage to try to get that cry for help, could be the difference in an emergency. But at the same time, I cannot totally. I hear what you say about the heat, though. The heat is a different animal. I'm not gonna lie. Like it's going to be a bit of a catch-22. We don't want police officers to be down for the count in the field of heat stroke. So I get it's a balancing act, but on a practical level, for their own safety as well, to have awareness, because until the crime situation gets clamped down on, there's also that as well to be considered. You don't want to be caught unawares or take it for granted. Oh, we're safe. Who's going to attack us? You never know. There's a first time for anything, unfortunately, in TNT, and it's slowly being proven.
That's unfortunately true. We see such things like that happen on a regular basis.
Now, go ahead.
No. I'm just saying sometimes we just like to adopt all the wrong things and not the right things from everybody else.
Yeah. Or just circumstances just kind of unluckily go the wrong way. Too many of them go the wrong way at once to just give us a very unique thing that could lead to a tragedy. Don't want to get into all of these various ways that there could be a tragedy. But going back to one of the first callers, and I do believe last week we actually had a similar sentiment on this, because it spoke about, closing the door of the barn after the horse bolted out to the door, right? Horse is already out, wild and free and difficult to contain. Closing the door now isn't going to fix that problem. He was referencing pornography, but I also think this, and I think we more or less said similar to with regards to marijuana, whereas the problem is the widespread use. People have gotten accustomed to it, people have started engaging in use of it, and just trying to turn off the taps of either pornography or marijuana is not really going to solve the problem of young people wanting to overindulge with pornography. Well, adults in general with regards to pornography, and in specific complaints, young people with regards to marijuana, or adults in general with regards to marijuana.
That ties into the issue of the sexual issues and sexual offenses and sexual assaults, and the whole issue, that whole issue where we treating with young children being abused. So there are multiple factors that could have been in this. I'm saying, as Nicola indicated, I have no evidential value to support or data to suggest that perpetrators of these crimes or sexual assault against children are pornography watchers or users. So I don't have any data to support that. But the reality is that the introduction of social media did in fact change the dynamics of accessibility to a lot of information and information overload that we have not really understood how it really impacts various areas and various sectors of society. Like, they're no longer about any magazine anymore. everything is online, easy access through your phone. So you don't have to worry about going on a television and paying particular thing for these. You could just go on your phone and download and access particular sites if you choose to, right? And have free access to those sites because it's easily available on social media platforms. So the thing about it is that how do we control persons, or I shouldn't say control like a bad word, a dangerous word to use. How could we understand what pushes at an individual to continue using social these porn sites and viewing pornography, all different variant type of pornography at the same time? How do you treat with it? Some psychologists and some individuals will in fact say it is an illness, right? That the persons use this for varying opportunities, right? So there's a lot of research that has to be done, and the taboo has to throw the taboo out the door, because it's no longer about a taboo anymore. It's a real situation. It's a real situation that will present itself, and you are seeing it, how it is happening, and we're not really paying particular attention to it holistically to actually analyze some of those situations. And that will go, remember a couple of years, well, when they had these games, war games and shooting games on the internet, there was a lot of outcry that children become much more violent, and the games are too violent for children and all of that. No. There are things to support that. What about when you have games like gambling games online?
Yeah.
Are they not also allowing persons to be who are prone to be
gambling addiction?
Addicts getting involved in these activities, and now they have gambling at their fingertips. So how do we treat with those type of situations? So I can say that this discussion could go all the way around with varying aspects of it, and how do we treat with all of them.
Well, we have to close with that. So thank you, ASP Ali, for joining me, as well as to all the callers. That's a good place to end up. As it was said, the consequences of technology and the holistic approach to so many problems, not just this one. But thank you, Ashraf. Folks, this is Talking About on WESN. Have a good day today. Make it a good day, as my coach always says, and we will see you tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.
My name is Carl Media, and the founder and the host of ever-increasing voice ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andy.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Paul?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through. Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit? Yes. What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive, it is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole, it's for all of us in public.
Have a content capital Christmas. It's the best time of the year. Now I know we have no snow, but Christmas is still here. Ho ho, the Christmas shows each week for all to see. Movie classics wait for you and our local content for free. Have a content capital Christmas, and in case you didn't hear, oh by golly.
The newest book is here, Closer to the Church, the debut novel by author and former mayor Louis Lee Singh. Available at all the Home Store branches, Barataria, West Mall, Shogunas and C3 San Fernando. Paper-based bookshop 10 Nook Avenue St. Anne's, WESN 30A Gattaca Street Woodbrook, Metropolitan Bookshop Ariapita Avenue Woodbrook, and all RIK bookstores nationwide. Available online as paperback on Amazon.com and Kindle for e-readers. For more info, call 628-5835 or 389-6504. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh, I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters, and Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People.
Be places where debate, free debate, even very, very adversarial, controversial views can be freely voiced, sort of a microcosm, but more intense, of broader society, debates in broader society. For many years, the Democrats and progressives in the U.S. have accused the Republicans of essentially stifling many forms of free speech. The Republicans have shot back against various forms of what they say the left is guilty of, universities of political correctness, universities which go so far in favor of promoting social justice that their policies and views become muddled and ridiculous. And now they've been lately, part of the newest phase of the culture wars has been bashing what they called wokeism. They're holding this up as the ultimate example, what we're seeing here, of this wokeism on college campuses. In the name of letting students say and do anything and be anything they want to be at any time, it's actually having a very pernicious effect. And the effect in this case, at least the Republicans would say, is that you have universities like Harvard, which come across as, it seems like, they are promoting anti-Semitism. Of course, the university presidents, we vehemently deny that. We saw basically Harvard's president, only 6 months into her job, vehemently denying that she has any such intention. But the fact of the matter is, in a highly charged political environment, less than a year out from a very big election, this is the type of environment that you have right now. This has been highly politicized, and right now you have 2 more university presidents under fire after one's already resigned. Elise Stefanik tweeted in the past 24 hours, 1 down, 2 to go, meaning she's presumably hoping that the other 2, Harvard's president and MIT's president, are next in line to resign. Harvard Corporation meeting this Monday, later today in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Perhaps the fate of Harvard's president will be decided.
All right, really important story. Thank you very much indeed, Doug, for coming to give us a little bit of detail on that. Doug Herbert for us there. Now, in other news, the former Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk is waiting in the wings in case a vote of no confidence brings down the current government today. This afternoon, the Prime Minister will present his cabinet for that vote of confidence, but because of parliamentary maths, he's unlikely to win, meaning Tusk is poised to return to power in Poland. That would mean improving ties with the European Union, with Tusk himself, the former head of the European Council. We'll keep a close eye for you on what's happening in Warsaw and bring you more on that when we get it. Now, here in France, the lower house of parliament is expected to start debating a controversial new immigration bill this Monday. The final version of the text is still in the making, but it is likely to fast-track asylum procedures, make family reunifications more difficult, and make it easier to deport people who were younger than 13 when they arrived in France. Here's the view now of Camille Lecoz, a senior policy analyst at the think tank Migration Policy Institute.
Debate on this bill has been extremely politicized, and in the end, we're landing on a project that I would say is not responding to migration issue as they are, as we're facing them at national level, but also European on the European and global scene. This debate has been going on for a year. There's been negotiation led by the Minister of Interior, Gérald Darmanin, who is really playing his political future with this bill, and has been, negotiating with right-wing party, as your report shows, that are playing very hard to get. And the stakes are very high for the majority. This is not an easy topic, because it really calls into our values, and that's a framing that the majority is quite uncomfortable to deal with. We've seen in the past week a new agreement, a new consensus, a compromise was reached in the National Assembly compared to the previous project that was agreed upon at the Senate. But we're seeing today that even this compromise may be under threat, given what might happen in this afternoon when the negotiation on the vote of the bill at the National Assembly will start.
Now, time for something quite different on the programme. After 3 days of intense negotiations between EU member states in the European Parliament, lawmakers reached an agreement on Friday on a framework to regulate artificial intelligence. It is the first text of its kind in the world, and the political agreement is expected to promote innovation in Europe while limiting the potential abuses of these advanced technologies. To tell us a bit more, our science and technology editor, Julia Seeger, is with me. And Julia, the agreement is being described as historic by the European Commissioner here, who initiated the project back in 2021.
Exactly. The discussions have dragged on. Just to give you an example, the last round of discussions lasted 37 hours. That just shows you how much EU member states are divided on how to handle this regulation of AI. Now, the process did start in 2021, but it was actually disrupted by the launch of ChatGPT at the end of 2022, which really revealed to the world the progress of generative AI, these AI systems that can create text translations, pitches in just seconds, but also voice and videos. And that showed also the associated risks like false information and deep fakes. And so what happened is that along the way, at the request of EU lawmakers, they decided to create a framework just for generative AI specifically. And so that took more time. And what we're seeing here is often what we see when we talk about innovation and regulation. Laws tend to really struggle to keep up with technological advances, and they fall back. Now, the other problem is, of course, there are differences between EU member states, with France and Germany really fearing that if they regulate too much, they will hamper innovation. It's going to hurt AI champs like, for instance, the French company Mistral AI. And this is very important because all regions in the world are today engaged in this race for AI. Now, the law is certainly a step forward. It is historic indeed, but it's not there yet. The law still needs to be formally approved by member states and the parliament, and we'll probably see it be enforced by 2025. And as I said, there's probably going to be a lot of new developments in the domain of AI until then.
Okay, but the political agreement was reached on Friday. So what does that actually entail?
Indeed. So you have to understand first how the law actually works. It's a two-tier mechanism. So Europe is going to impose on providers of AI systems different obligations depending on two different things: the power of their AI system, how powerful it is, but also how risky it's deemed for people. So, for instance, an AI system that is in the domain of health is automatically going to be considered as more risky. So if you look at generative AI, for instance, for powerful AI models like ChatGPT, for instance, you're going to see new obligations like a risk management and monitoring, human control over the machine, technical documentation, whereas for a less powerful algorithm, they're just going to ask for transparency to understand how they developed their AI. So this two-tier system is one sticking point. The second sticking point is the use of AI by law enforcement. So the text for now prohibits what we call real-time facial recognition, but also automatic biometric identification for individuals in public places, and that includes emotional recognition that we see in China. And the goal here is to really avoid sliding into a social credit system like in China. But the states were able to obtain certain exemptions. So there are three. So police will be able to use AI models with the prevention of terrorist threats, the search for kidnapped victims, but also the identification of suspected criminals. So, of course, this is raising many concerns.
All right, Julia Seeger, thanks very much indeed. Now it's time on the programme for our Focus Report, and today we're looking at the impact the war in Gaza is having here in France, a country home to the largest Muslim and Jewish communities in Europe. Since the conflict erupted, there's been a surge of Islamophobic and anti-Semitic incidents across France. Our reporters Clovis Casali and Jonathan Walsh have been to meet members of the Jewish community here to listen to their fears, with many of them saying they feel they're being blamed for the actions of the Israeli government. Here's their report.
It's a cold winter evening, and a small group of pacifists have gathered in the Parisian suburb of Les Ulis.
Given the sacrifices of Palestinian and Israeli civilians, we must have an immediate and lasting ceasefire.
Attending the weekly vigil is 95-year-old Marie-France. She and her family were part of the resistance fighting Nazis. She witnessed first-hand violence on French soil and hopes it never returns.
There's a need for tolerance. You need to get along with people who aren't 100% in agreement with you, but with whom you share an ideal of solidarity.
They all believe in the need to prevent tensions from spilling over to France.
Here in France, some say there's no difference between Hamas and Palestinians, and no difference between French Jews and the Netanyahu government. We, on the other hand, want to see a new kind of society where dialogue is possible and hate isn't stirred up on both sides.
Dia struggles sometimes to get her message across to the young generations. She's organised a workshop in a nearby community centre. Everyone here has an opinion.
Absolutely nothing can justify the massacres and war crimes currently taking place. Hamas is committing horrible acts, but it's a terrorist group. The Israeli army, however, is supposed to be the army of a state that belongs to the United Nations.
You can surely understand Israel's retaliation after what happened with that atrocious attack. The thousands of Israelis targeted and many civilians massacred by Hamas on October 7th. It really shook me. But what really infuriates me is to see Israel indiscriminately bombing Gaza. It's no solution.
These youths follow closely the news, mostly on social media.
Look at how fast information flows without any checks on social media, especially on Twitter or X as it's known since Elon Musk bought it. There's less and less control regarding sources, and it's a catalyst for what is most violent and bad.
NGO SOS Racisme monitors hate speech online. A difficult task given their limited resources and the many platforms.
Racists and anti-Semitic groups are all over social media. Yes, that's her.
That's an influencer who posted a video on the October 7th massacre when she joked about Israeli babies being eaten with salt and baked in ovens.
Their team of 5 people reports those inciting hatred and violence for prosecution.
We notice more racist comments made in traditional media, and it triggers more reaction. It's an increasing trend. Nearly every day, we are told or see cases of hate speech.
The NGO accuses social media platforms of doing little to tackle hate speech. It's asking for help with extremism on the rise.
Si à chaque fois qu'il y a un conflit entre Israéliens et Palestiniens,
if there's a surge in anti-Semitism, as well as hatred towards Muslims or Arabs, every time that there's a conflict between Israelis and Palestinians, it's because existing problems in our country are being reignited.
Des choses qui sont présentes dans notre pays.
France has recorded a sharp rise in anti-Semitic acts since October 7th, with hateful messages graffitied on buildings and graves defaced. Alain Rosinquier is a Franco-Israeli sociologist and long-time peace activist, a Parisian who lived 15 years in a kibbutz. One of his cousins survived the Hamas attack.
He hid in his safe room for some 20 hours while fighting was taking place all around him. Residents in his kibbutz were massacred, others kidnapped.
He dreams of one day seeing Israel live peacefully alongside a Palestinian state, though it seems far from reach right now. He was recently shocked as he was walking back home in Paris.
Photos of the Israeli hostages had been ripped off the wall. It's unbelievable. 5,000 kilometers away. People should just take a step back. There's no need to be caught up and impassioned like those on the ground there face to face.
Some of his Jewish friends hide their religion in fear for their safety. He says there's a before and an after October 7th.
The situation has created a feeling of isolation and solitude for some of the Jews in France, who thought they were fully accepted and integrated once and for all. But in fact, it's now questioned again.
Mass demonstrations have been taking place across France over the war in Gaza. Frustrated at the lack of unity in the country, a group of artists organized a silent one in Paris. It called for an immediate ceasefire and to not take sides. A march that attracted only a few thousand people.
And that's a wrap for this news hour. Thank you for watching, and do stay with us.
A few months ago,
Marie was born. Her birth brought up many questions that I just couldn't keep to myself. Questions about my Algerian father, who was the son of an Arki.
Je suis à la rencontre un petit peu des gens qui ont vécu ici, puis dans le camp. Je peux pas vous poser quelques questions?
C'est dur à expliquer, c'est sûr que moi j'ai déjà du mal à l'expliquer à mes enfants.
Si c'était le pire, le camp de Bias, c'était un hôpital psychiatrique à ciel ouvert.
Les bâtiments ressemblaient à des bâtiments comme dans les camps de concentration.
On nous a cachés, on dirait qu'on avait la peste, parce que M. de Gaulle il nous a mis le couteau du FLN sous la gorge.
J'ai fini, merci. Je peux pas.
I'm sorry, Granny. Forget about it.
Follow our international journalists on France 24. Douglas Herbert, Angela Diffley, Robert Parsons, Philip Turle, and Armand Georgian. From the newsroom to the studio or live on air, they are on standby 24/7 to analyse world events. Whether tackling historic, geopolitical, economic or environmental issues, our experts get to the heart of the biggest international news stories. They contribute to our special reports and scour the headlines for information. Follow it live. Follow the news. Follow France 24.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.
Long kept in silence. Restoring the Mau Mau's rebellion's place in Kenya's history.
Whatever our fathers did was never reported in the right way. So people ended up worshipping the ones who are not the owners of independence.
The rebel movement that fought hard against British colonizers is fighting not to be forgotten.
If these stories are not taken for the real Mau Maus, people are going to live with lies, perpetual lies, and the true story will never be known.
Kenya Revisited on France 24 and France24.com.
WESN.
Here is the WESN News on the Hour. I am Sira Ali. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. PSC nominates trio for Deputy Commissioner roles. Prison officer arrested, contraband seized. Regionally, Guyana Civil Aviation Authority launched an investigation into the Bell 412 helicopter crash. Now for the details. The House of Representatives Order Paper reveals the Police Service Commission's submissions presenting 3 senior police officers for parliamentary consideration to fill vacant deputy commissioner positions. The deliberation on the shortlisted candidates, Senior Superintendents Wendell, Lucas, Junior Benjamin, and Natasha George is scheduled for December 13th as outlined in the order paper. The PSA identified the three as the top contenders for the Deputy Commissioner roles. Notably, Acting Commissioners of Police Ramnarang Samaru and Kate Simon had previously been granted approval to act in these positions. Senior Superintendent Wendell Lucas, currently heading the White Collar Crimes Division, stands among the shortlisted candidates. Natasha George, serving as active superintendent at the St. James Barracks and the Child Protection Unit, and Junior Benjamin, the former acting senior superintendent of the Tobago Division, complete the list of contenders. A prison officer is currently in police custody after illegal contraband was found on his person at the Golden Grove Prison, Aruca. Around 11:15 a.m. on December 8th, prison officers carried out a check at the administration section of the Golden Grove Prison, during which time another prison officer was searched. The officers found 3 packets of cigarettes in his pants, also 1 black cellular phone in his bag. A party of police officers led by Sergeant Evans, under the supervision of Acting Inspector Pear and Sergeant Amon, proceeded to the prison and made inquiries. As a result, a 37-year-old prison officer was arrested and the contraband was seized. WPC Skeet is investigating the matter. In regional news, the Guyana Civil Aviation Authority and the Guyana Police Force have initiated a comprehensive investigation into the Bell 412 helicopter crash near the Guyana-Venezuela border last Wednesday. Brigadier Omar Khan, Chief of Staff of the Guyana Defense Force, confirmed this development. 5 of the 7 occupants of the GDF Bell 412 helicopter, which went missing in Region 7, lost their lives in the jungle crash. Fortunately, Lieutenant Andio Michael Crawford and Corporal Dwayne Johnson survived the incident. The GDF, reporting that the black box recorder device has been located, anticipates it will provide crucial insights into the crash. This discovery is expected to aid investigators in determining the precise cause of the incident that claimed the lives of the 5 GDF soldiers. Well, that's it. News on the hour on WESN. I am Sarah Ali. Thank you for watching.
WESN.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks for joining us once again. Let's tell you what's happening in this edition of the program. November 17, 2023. This is a statement from Philip Morris International, Philip Morris Trinidad and Tobago. It continues its commitment to provide better alternatives to adult smokers who would otherwise continue to smoke. The company officially launched its smoke-free vision in the country with science-based, what it calls science-based better alternatives compared to cigarettes for adult smokers. The mission is to encourage the hundreds of millions of adults around the world who would otherwise continue to smoke, so switch to better alternatives as soon as possible. The vision for Trinidad and Tobago, they say, is for a smoke-free or a cigarette smoke-free environment. Sheldon Wood is the country representative, the senior country representative for Philip Morris International in Trinidad and Tobago. It's the second time we'll be having this discussion about what they call a vision for Trinidad and Tobago free of cigarette smoke. Good to see you. Welcome once again to the program.
Hi, good morning, Andy, and good morning to all the viewers and listeners of Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you for having me.
All right, so you say in the statement that what you're after is a responsible sales and what you have in place is a responsible sales and marketing position. Let's talk about how that is recognizable.
Okay, so currently, right now in Trinidad and Tobago, we sell our combustible cigarettes with our brands L&M and Marlboro, L&M being the #1 brand in the country. Now, as a global organization, we are committed to responsible sales and marketing principles, and you would see that in quite a few ways. First and foremost, in terms of any sort of engagements that we have are only with legal age smokers. So how we do that, first of all, is we ask a couple of very, very important questions. First of all, are you, of course, of legal age? And we can ask for validation and verification through IDs. We ask, are you a smoker? Do you have any intentions to continue smoking or to quit? Now, Andy, if, of course, you are not of legal age, any sort of engagement is discontinued immediately. If it is that you're of legal age but you're not a smoker, we wouldn't engage with you either. That's our marketing guidelines. And as well, too, if you've indicated that you're thinking about quitting smoking, we also will not engage. So first of all, those are our important parameters to make sure that we are responsibly marketing to legal age smokers who have made the decision to continue smoking. Also, as well, too, in any sort of, particularly when it comes to smoke-free now, right, and when with our new product that we've recently launched, Vive, any sort of social media engagement you would see, first and foremost, it's not going to be about consumption, and any sort of, ambassadors and so that are used, they would have to look and prove that they are over the age of 21, so not even 18. So we take a lot of very strict measures. We will also make sure, for example, that any sort of communications or engagements are not anywhere where there are any schools, hospitals, any sort of, environments where people do a lot of exercising. And so we're very, very, very specific and very meticulous of who we engage with, where we engage. And of course, we will only also engage in areas where there's legal age people. We would never engage anywhere where there's a possibility of anybody underage being exposed.
All right, so I want to get to where you mentioned the name of the product. Now, you said it's Vive now, and you said that's PMI's science-based disposable vape device. You said we will lead the way of tobacco harm reduction in Trinidad and Tobago. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so our vision is, believe it or not, as the #1 tobacco producing company in the world, our vision is a world where in 10 to 15 years cigarettes don't exist, right? And it's a very bold vision. It's a very ambitious vision. We're actually tangibly well on our way because over 35% of our company's global revenues are now coming from smoke-free products, right, and reduced risk products. And also as well too, we're expanding our smoke-free product range into over 82 countries in the world. Now, the idea is look, the WHO has said that by 2025, there will still exist 1 billion smokers in the world. This is numbers that are produced by the WHO, okay? And all we're saying is for those billion smokers who've made that decision that they want to continue to smoke, let's give them alternatives that will be less harmful to them and also still satisfy what it is that they're looking for. So the whole concept of our smoke-free vision, not only for Trinidad and Tobago, but for the world, is that we can actually have a future where combustible cigarettes, which are responsible for all the negative health as well as the negative stigma that is around the consumption of tobacco and nicotine. If we can get alternatives to those users who made up their mind that they still want that satisfaction from nicotine, they still want that sort of satisfaction from tobacco consumption, how can we give them something that is not going to be as harmful for them? And that's our vision and that's our goal.
All right, I want to ask you to expand on what you say here, that Trinidad and Tobago is one of the countries in the Caribbean region in which PMI consolidates its vision, providing not only science-based alternatives, but also education regarding the risks of smoking and the importance of responsible commercialization.
Yeah, so essentially in the Caribbean, we are the second in the Caribbean to have our expansion of smoke-free with Vive Now. Right, Vive Now as our vaping solution. It's not the only one of our tobacco harm reduction solutions, but we're the second market in the Caribbean that has this. So we've been talking for a long time, Andy, with government officials. We've been speaking with legal age smokers. We've been speaking with legal age nicotine users. We've been having a lot of dialogue behind the scene over the last few years.
That is in Trinidad and Tobago?
That is in Trinidad and Tobago, that's correct. Within Trinidad and Tobago. And what we've said is, look, we've been talking this smoke-free vision for a while now, And we needed to actually now bring something tangibly to the table so that we can show that we're not just only talking this vision, but we're actually walking the talk. So with the launch of Vive Now, that's the first of what's going to be a range of tobacco reduction alternatives, or you know, non-combustible alternatives, as we would call it, that will eventually be presented to legal age nicotine users of Trinidad and Tobago to give them options that are not going to be as harmful as traditional combustible cigarettes.
Yeah, and you say Trinidad and Tobago is positioning now as sort of a model place where you were conducting these sorts of surveys among users and potential users. Why is that? Why did?
Yeah, so
go ahead.
The importance of that, Andy, is that ultimately any business, right, knowing your consumer is what gives you the competitive advantage. It's consumer centricity. So we needed to speak with the stakeholders, which would be the legal age combustible cigarette smokers, because we needed to understand what drives them, what's their motivation, what could we do that would get them to consider switching to something less harmful. We also spoke to existing vape users to understand their particular behaviors and their habits as well. And then, of course, we've also been engaging with some of the government officials behind the scenes, because right now, the vape industry is not regulated. And we believe it should be regulated, all right? Because we want to make sure that anybody who is partaking in this part of the industry follows strict guidelines to make sure that there's no exposure to any minors. There's also responsible depletion of devices, and so, because there's an element of what we have which speaks to the environment as well, and how we treat with devices to make sure there's minimal impact to the environment. So regulation plays an important part in this, but at the same time, you need to have responsible regulation. So those kind of conversations were happening with some of the officials, with the Vape Association as well, because there's a Vape Association of Trinidad and Tobago, and that dialogue is going to continue.
Well, you use the term responsible in talking about regulations. Shouldn't it be reasonable? Shouldn't it be reasonable? Because regulation could be such that it could adversely affect commercial operations, whether it's yours or other people. But so probably you meant not over-regulation, not strangulatory regulation, right?
Yeah, I mean, where I used the term responsible was deliberate in the sense that, again, what we want to make sure is there is commercialization allowed, just as there is right now for combustible cigarettes. But the onus has to be placed to ensure that any company that is involved in this takes all the precautions to make sure that they're responsibly marketing or responsibly consuming or engaging consumers, right, rather. So for me, that's where the word responsible comes in. Of course, you're absolutely right. If you go to over-regulation, and if it is that, for example, you were to treat this just as you would traditional combustible cigarettes, then the impact of that is there's not an incentive for a legal age smoker to switch, right? And what we want is we want those legal age smokers of combustible cigarettes to switch to these less harmful alternatives. So over-regulation, becomes counterproductive. But at the same time, responsible regulation ensures that any engagement around anything that has to do with smoke-free devices or anything that has to do with reduced risk products when it comes to nicotine and tobacco consumption, there have to be responsible guidelines, because we want to make sure that the correct audience is being addressed.
All right. On the assumption that the Ministry of Health is probably the lead public agency with your consultations and collaborations, to what extent you can share anything about what's the disposition of the minister or whoever is sort of leading the ministry's charge in these discussions and consultations that you all are conducting?
Look, we don't have, there's been dialogue, but I can't speak to what their position is. What I can say is that there's been extensive dialogue and sharing of information, not only from what we've gathered here, but worldwide, what's been happening. Some of the decisions taken by some countries, some of the impacts of some of the decisions being taken, some of the regulations that have made sense, that have worked, that haven't worked. So, because we operate in multiple countries throughout the world, we get exposed to what is working and what's not working. So what we do is we just simply share the positions We share the experience that we have, but ultimately speaking, you know, obviously we will abide by whatever regulations are in place by whichever country we operate in. So, you know, that's really where we're at in terms of sharing the dialogue. In terms of position of the Ministry of Health and any government agency, I mean, I can't speak to that at this point.
Yeah, I'm staying with the question, the focus on Trinidad and Tobago. Of all the countries in the region, what makes us stand out as the sort of template for conducting these tests and these surveys and so on?
Well, look, ultimately speaking, there's some facts that we can't ignore, right? In terms of tobacco consumption, right, per capita within the Caribbean region, Trinidad and Tobago is one of the highest, right? So obviously for us, with our smoke-free vision and seeing that we can convert as many of the combustible cigarettes to less harmful alternatives, Trinidad and Tobago would be of interest to us because ultimately, remember, this is our vision. Our vision of in 10 to 15 years of actually having no cigarettes. Then you would tend to start to focus on the markets where the consumption per capita and so is high, right? So with Trinidad and Tobago being one of those countries, that would be one of the reasons why in particular, right? Not only that, Philip Morris Trinidad and Tobago has actually been growing its footprint within the Trinidad and Tobago landscape, all right? We have our partners that we have a distribution, we have partners that we are engaging with respect to even the smoke-free as well too. So given the fact that we also have an affiliate in Trinidad and Tobago, because we don't have affiliates in every country throughout the Caribbean, right? Trinidad and Tobago, there's an actual Philip Morris Trinidad and Tobago form. So given the fact that we are growing as an organization, we have a footprint in Trinidad and Tobago, and as well as the per capita consumption, I mean, it just made sense that Trinidad and Tobago be one of those places that we start with expanding our smoke-free vision within the Caribbean.
Yeah, and you say VEEV now, it's not a cigarette, it does not contain nicotine. And my question therefore is, it's good for you?
No. So let me be absolutely clear on something here, all right? First and foremost, it is less harmful than traditional cigarettes. It is not harmless. The actual VEEV and vape devices, they have nicotine in it. Nicotine in as of itself is an addictive substance, although it's not directly the cause of some of the harmful effects that you would normally get with traditional cigarette smoking. At the end of the day, it is not harmless. The only thing, Andy, that is 100% harmless is if you decide altogether to quit smoking and to quit nicotine, right? And we say this openly, and we say this without any fear or impact on our business, because that's what's 100%. The only thing that we can say also as well empirically is that if somebody was consuming a traditional cigarette, they would be exposed because of the combustion to a lot of harmful toxins that causes a lot of the complications such as heart disease, lung disease, cancer, that sort of thing, right? Now, the actual vaping product in itself is not harmless, but you are not, because there's no combustion, you are not exposed to as many of these harmful toxins. Actually, it's 95% less toxins that you're exposed to. So by virtue of that in itself, you know, you're putting yourself at less risk. But is it that you're at 100% without risk? Absolutely not, no. And we would never use the terms that it is good or no, we would never use that. It is less harmful. And that's our position on it. So I just wanted to make that abundantly clear.
Yeah, and part of the narrative, I think you give it a 99% rating in terms of the extent to which this device removes health risks for people. And you know, my question is, what is the potency of the 1% that remains?
Well, look, at the end of the day, I mean, I'm not a doctor, but I will say this, right? Ultimately speaking, you're going to be still exposed to toxins, and everybody's individual body responds differently, right? So it's really a unique case, but ultimately speaking, it's dealing with the data and the numbers, right? If you're exposed to 99% less harmful toxins, and if it is that you are not being exposed to combustion, you are being exposed to nicotine, which is addictive and is harmful, but not directly related to some of these major issues that you're faced with, then ultimately speaking, you're going to put yourself, if you're a smoker of traditional cigarettes, you're going to put yourself in a position where you are exposed to less harmful toxins, less harmful ingredients. So ultimately speaking, you know, you're at a lower risk of anything happening to you. You're not 100% risk-free.
All right, and one has to take as solid what you say the growing demands for better smoking devices, and this is a response to that.
Well, there is the good thing is that there's a lot more awareness and visibility of one, what are the effects of traditional cigarette smoking, all right? That's something that we have brought to the table. Even, we have to be thankful to the Ministry of Health and the Tobacco Controlling, because they have done their part too as well to make sure that people are aware of the harmful effects of traditional combustible smoking, right? There has been, and we have seen it not just only in Trinidad and Tobago, but throughout the world, there's been an explosion of interest and demand and for consumption of these other alternatives, right? But the important thing and the fundamental difference, particularly with Philip Morris, is that we're very clear on who we're targeting, who we communicate to, right? Because we don't want anyone who is not a nicotine user, who's underage, who's thinking of quitting smoking totally. We don't want to engage or want them to be exposed to any of what it is that we have to discuss and we have to offer, right? So that's where we are very, very, very careful. Our internal marketing guidelines, Andy, are stricter than some of the regulations in a lot of countries. You'd be very surprised of what we say. Even if the rules and regulations of the country allow for it, we simply will not do it.
All right, and when it was a nicotine-dominated smokers' world, I referred to back decades ago, there used to be a tagline in one of the commercials, for real smoking pleasure. To what extent that pleasure is maintained with VEEV now, and well, this is the latest edition of the vaping devices. How do you guarantee that pleasure, whatever the pleasure is that people get from smoking?
Well, look, so first and foremost, people consume traditional cigarettes for different reasons, right? Some of them, it's for the taste and the flavors. And what we have with VEEV now is based, again, on some of the research that we've conducted. We do have flavors. We have 7 flavors, as well as we have the menthol, all right? So those research would have pointed to what flavors legal age cigarette smokers tend to gravitate towards, because ultimately, like I said, the goal is to try to encourage them to switch from traditional cigarettes, right? So if you have to try to get them to switch, Andy, then you have to try to make that transition or that journey as less traumatic as possible and get them to accustom to what they want. So if it is that from a traditional cigarette, you have, capsules which offer flavors, we offer similar flavors that appeal to the Trinidad and Tobago local palate. So through the flavors there as well. Our device, as I said, is a disposable device. So essentially, once you're finished utilizing the device, right, we dispose of it. We have mechanisms for you to dispose of it responsibly, because we don't want to have, a landfill full of empty devices that are going to be harmful for the environment. So we have mechanisms in place. So, this is just going to be one. I mean, in the future, there are going to be more. But right now, this is our first entry in terms of smoke-free alternatives that we have. There are going to be others. I mean, throughout the world and even within the Caribbean, in terms of Dominican Republic, we have IQOS, which is our heat not burn, which actually heats tobacco, but it doesn't combust. So that tailors towards those legal age smokers that not so much into flavors, but they want the closer to tobacco experience. We also have globally nicotine pouches, right, where it is that, you just essentially you consume the pouch in itself to get that nicotine into your system that you need. So there are different mechanisms of doing it, but ultimately speaking, the main cause of a lot of the problems is traditional combustible cigarettes, and that's what we're trying to move. Those 1 billion people the WHO has said that are going to exist by 2025, we want to get them to utilize something less harmful to them.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to use the term in a negative way, but from what you say, it conjures up sort of thoughts about, so whatever is the mechanism and the science and the substances in the VEEV, it will trick the brain into thinking that it's getting what it wants in terms of why people smoked in the first place.
Well, it's not about tricking the brain. I mean, ultimately, like I said, VEEV